What's up, everybody? Sam Smyers here. Today, I want to show you how I made my remix of Dolla's You with Andrew Lux and Grevy. Now, before we get started today, please go ahead and give this video a like and make sure that you are subscribed to my YouTube channel. All right, so me, Andrew Lux, and Grevy, we all got together in the studio and we're trying to think of a song to remix. We did one a few weeks ago that was just like a classic Freak Leak, and then we did this one, which was Dolla's song You, which came out a few years ago. It's one of his early songs. We had actually all gotten together at a Dolla concert like the first time we all met, so we just thought it would be a cool thing to make this remix as almost like an ode to that, where we were just meeting at a show and everything. So this remix, I think, is like, let's say melodic house, melodic techno maybe. Let's say melodic techno-ish, leaning tech house style. So let me go ahead and play you just a little bit of a section of it so you can get an idea for it. And then if you do want to listen to the full thing, you can just find it down below. I'll put a SoundCloud link to it.
I can't wait to get you off my mind. I'll say it only time. I know it's serum, because I'm thinking about you, but you're still by my side. This time it don't feel bad. These thoughts are hard to fight, because I'm thinking about you, because I'm thinking about you, because I'm thinking about you, because I'm thinking about because I'm thinking about
There it is, up to the first drop, and then the second drop, I add in some more synths. So let me play you that second drop part. So you hear that bum ba da bum 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 synth in that second drop. So now you can see above here, I've structured it out. I've got the intro here, we got the pre, the drop here. This one is, I believe, 24 bars for the drop. There's almost like an outro drop. Little section there to like mix out of. We were just talking about ways that we can make it a little bit easier for DJing. So we put this little extra section here. So that is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bars there. Before you get into the break or that verse section. Now, one approach I took when I was making this song was I tried to divide it up into little sections. And once we had a basic structure, what I did was I would go through and really just select 4 bars, loop it, and then make sure I like that 4 bars. And then I would go to the next 4 bars, loop it, and then make sure that something changed from those first 2 bars. So you can see I had these 4 bars, and then I went into these 4 bars and I added some toms in these 4 bars to change it up. So that every 4 bars in the song, you have something different happening. I think that is an approach you could try taking if you feel like you want to make your song a bit more interesting. And then this next 4 bars, I add in some more shakers here, and so on. And it just keeps changing. So every 4 bars, I'm changing something. Let's go through the drums. We can go through the drum bus. Let's see what's on the drum bus. Got the drum bus, some K-clip for some, let's see, smooth clipping, hard clipping. I didn't soften it there. Pro C for some compression. And you can see I've got the sidechain on where I am low cutting the, adding a low cut there so that when the kick comes through, it's the compressor is not being triggered by the kick, the low end of the kick. And we've got some just EQ there taking down the high ends. I tend to make my stuff too bright, so I'm trying to work on making my drums or just hi-hat stuff not so bright. So we can just go through some of the drums here. That's for the drop. And that is made up of, we've got the kick, shaker loop, another hi-hat layer here. And then I would just add in a pattern here where I've got this closed hat with an open hat. To add a nice hi-hat pattern. And that is the benefit of like just taking a loop or something and then chopping it up and just making it fit with your track. A lot of times you can just, when you're building out a production, you can take in your top loops, put them in, and then chop them up to fit your track, because they're not always going to fit your track or where like hits are or stabs. So this little one I did because there's this synth that comes in, and then I wanted to like tail end that synth with a little hi-hat hit. It's little things like that I think that help make a track more interesting. Then I add in some triangles. We've got a loose hat. I had this straight 16th note hat there. I've got some toms here. Here's a clap with a layer there. And this layer, I've got the clap a bit before the grid. It's a bit early. And then I bring in some open hats here. So all together, let's play these hats. And all the drums together. So you can hear I added a little conga hit to make it that section difference. So I've got some random percussion here. Here's a conga hit I throw in at random times. Here's another one. I add in the second verse. Another way just to add some variation to the track. And let's see how I build up this second verse part. And I do have this top loop, which it feels a bit loose, and I use it only in the verses, and then I switch and take it off during the drop because I didn't want to have this layer on top of the other stuff. It just sounded a bit too messy to me. It sounded a lot cleaner without it in. But I did like how it had a softer feel for the verses. Then, of course, I have some snare roll stuff for the build-ups. Chop that up a little bit to give it some variation. And the mixing-wise, sometimes I've been using like a convolution reverb on drums now. I think I'm hearing a lot more reverb in drums now in house music. So this is something to think about, is you could group all of your hats together, and this reverb is on the clap actually. You can hear how it widens it out a lot really nicely. And I think that adding some reverb to drums, like if you listen to house tracks now, I'm hearing reverb on stuff more. I used to keep them pretty dry, but now I'm adding them to claps like that, or even hi-hats. Let's see if I added on any of these hi-hats. I don't think I did here. Mainly just those claps. So experiment with some reverb. I like the convolution reverb and using like really short reverbs, room reverbs, plate reverbs, or if you can get like a good ambience reverb. That's the basics for the drums. And let's go into the bass now. I'll show you how I made the bass. Here is the bass pattern. We struggled with coming up with a bass line for this one. But that is the main bass line. I've got some this is a little EQ rack that Andrew Lux made for adding in EQ stuff. But I've got, let's see, we've got some roar on. And I didn't end up using the sausage fattener. I've got an echo there. Let me just take off this kickstart. Then I've been using this sub filter plugin a lot. And then just some other EQing. So let's go back into Serum, see what I did here. So what I did is we actually started with a preset based off of a Dolla song, which was Strangers, and then I modified it. So let's see, I've got some portamento here. It's not on always, so I don't think any of the notes overlap, so I don't know if there is any portamento being applied. Here's envelope 1. I'm using Eigenhas kick wavetable position at 100, randomness at 0. These aren't doing anything because I turned off this oscillator B and not using any sync. Envelope 2, I've got this assigned to a MG-Low 18 filter. Then you can see the drive in resonance. Then from there, let's go into the effects. We have tube, and I've got the compressor and EQ. That distortion's doing a lot of heavy lifting for that drive you hear. And so that is the bass. Then I just modified that. There's these cool stabs here in the second buildup. Which we added to make it sound bigger. And let's see what's in there. Just took the same preset, modified it a bit. Eigenhas kick wavetable position is adjusted a bit. Envelope 2, MG-Low 12 filter with this cutoff and adjusted differently with a different modulation. Some noise in there and way more effects on this one. Let's see. This one's not being used. Let's take that off. This one mixes 0. That's not being used. That's not being used. Let's see what is being used. Looks like these, just these 3 things. And you can hear there's a bit of release on that bass. And I've got some roar on there. I do have the sausage fattener turned on, reverb. Actually doing quite a lot with that stock reverb. Make it sound pretty big. I've got these reverse basses. All you do is you bounce a bass hit, reverse it, and you can have that be a good lead into your bass. So there you hear that bass. Let's turn that kickstart back on. And the verse bass. Same thing, I just adjusted the settings a bit. Let's see, wavetable position at 90, envelope 2 on this MG-Low 12 filter, the effects. I've got the distortion compressor, EQ, and then these ones probably, let's see, are not being used. Those are just for like the macros adjusting the preset. And the portamento I turned down. So this is what I used for the bass one, and then just filtered it a lot more. using this rack just to have a high cuts filter or low pass, whatever you want to call it. That's the basics of the bass. Now let's go on to the vocals. Pretty straightforward with the vocals. Let's see if I have any bus processing, a little bit of sidechain compression and compression on there. This was a cool little thing. We have that auto panning it and then rising it. I think Andrew did that. I thought that was really cool. So I use that a lot. You can see I've used it throughout the track. And let's see.
Thinking about you.
All we did was just extract that vocal from the original track and added a bit of reverb. So that wasn't much processing on the vocal. There are some reverbs.
Thinking about you.
And we just automate things like reverb and delay. I added a bit more reverb and delay there to get into that break sound. And then we have these vocals here. From the original track, and I would just bump it up an octave here. Another technique, just trying to keep every little section different, every little 4 bars different, and that's what I did. Those are the vocals. Didn't do too much for the vocals. Let's go through the instruments now. We've got, these are just your high strings. Layers, just automating those up and down throughout the track, and then just figuring out a structure for those. Here's the pad. So this one's cool because I used, let's see. I have this ARP on. I have this octave at -1, and I have this note on random discrete. And that means that it'll randomly play. So let's go into the matrix here. It'll randomly go -1 octave to 0 1 octave every time a note is pressed. So you hear how sometimes the note is an octave lower or an octave higher, and I'm just pressing the note. So it has this like cool variation to the arpeggio, and then I have a lower octave here, and then that filter is tied to the envelope. And then that is just going to be, the reverb's just going to be the Ableton reverb. So that's the arpeggiated pad. Just have some EQing going on there. Just going to be a saw wave and nothing in the effects with a bit of a filter. I'll show you these chords though. So let's go ahead and solo those synths now. Now let's go on to some of the lead sounds. Let's go into the MIDI here. And go into the serum. It looks like I just used the Stranger's bass again, but pitched it up a bit, played it up an octave, and 82 wavetable. I've got some voices of unison here. I added on, not that, let's see this. I do have a MG-Low 12 filter on there. Took off the distortion. Got my reverb, EQ, and so that's how I made that lead. Now we've got these stabs. Got some reverb there, really widening out the sound. I put into mono on my utility plugin. Here is my preset I used. This lead stab disconnected from which preset pack? My number 1 Tech House preset pack. A square wave with 7 voices of unison. Envelope 2. Let's see, is that controlling anything? Just have a filter on there, this MG-Low 24 filter and multi-band compression. And let's see, I've got these Max Styler style leads. Just automating this reverb. Like that, and that is going to be a preset from my Tech House Volume 3 pack. Probably modified it a bit. Maybe not, but this is you can take a look at this. These are all the settings. And let's see what effects are being used. Not the flanger. Not that distortion. Actually, that distortion is being used. I don't think that reverb is being used. And the width is a bit more narrow. As well. So that is mainly, let's see, what is that? I've got, this one's a negative octave 1. I've got both saws, voices of unison there. Lots of distortion. There is a lot of automating going on, like with synths and stuff, like especially with these synths here, like just automating high cuts, low cuts, automating reverbs. And I think that's important for pads and synths. Here's one thing I do have. This here is a bass, like a acid bass effect. I heard a similar sound in Calvin Harris's Ocean, and I wanted to copy it. So that is based off of a effect you hear in Calvin Harris's Ocean that happens a lot throughout his track. And I'm using this KHS Transgate, which is a free plugin, to create that effect. And this sound is just going to be a saw wave, 2 voices of unison, automating that cutoff filter. And also this EQ is being automated. So I'm always just like automating EQs a lot. And then you can also hear there's a washout going on here. This is the washout to bring in like the reverb.
Thinking about
And you can hear how I'm using that bass acid effect to create movement, and we bring it back in the second drop. And I'm automating the high cut filter, the cutoff right here, to add movement and make that second drop a little bit different. Let's go over this verse lead here in the second verse.
but you're still by my side.
I've got some overdrive and some reverb. That's what sounds without it. Let's add this back on. Just some EQ. And the actual sound is this one called Lead Alive, which is in my Viral Sounds pack. And that is really just a saw wave with a bit of a slow attack. And this filter. See what we've got on the effects, tape saturation, EQ, this filter's not being used, some delay, some of this reverb. Let's take off all these effects here. And now let's listen to it with the song.
But you're still by my side. This song, it don't feel right. These thoughts are hard to find. Because I'm thinking about you.
Then after that, I just have effects. This is like crashes, downlifters, things like that.
Thinking about you.
Nothing too crazy with these effects. Use samples, white noise samples, just find good effect samples. Try not to overdo it. Sometimes people like to have all these effects in there and then their session is 90% effects. Just try to remove layers and maybe you can layer them and then take some away. You can see we've have a couple of these things layered up. So it is sometimes hard to not use as many effects because you want to fill in your track with all these like psh, psh, and like uplifters and risers and stuff. So just try to be careful with adding too much. And I do have on my main Endless Smile, which I am automating for the build-ups here. You can see I'm automating the intensity there using the fist in the air setting. Then I am automating different sections of the song because I felt like it was too all loud. So I wanted to lower the level of like the breaks and stuff. And I did that by 2 dB. And I also did some automation to the actual main output here, reducing things like 1 dB where you go closer into the build up, into the drop, lowering the level so that when the drop comes in, it has more intensity. And that's like a 2 dB drop on the master.
'Cause I'm thinking about.
And it goes up to 0 dB to help make that drop feel a bit louder. Processing wise, on the master, we've got a bus compressor, K-clip, the crisp setting, ozone 11. Let's see what I'm using in here. EQ, some of this clarity. I'm starting to use this ozone 11, experiment with it more. And the imager, dynamic EQ imager, that's just for like hi-hat stuff. The stabilizer, 25%. And then our limiter. So let's go ahead and just listen to this. I'll leave the limiter on, but turn everything off. There's a compressor. Let's add on the K-clip. And now let's add on the ozone 11. And that is all the mastering. So that is everything for this track. I think I covered everything. I do have my references up here, just throwing those into a group and referencing using reference tracks. And this was at 130 up there. You can see the BPM. That covers everything for this remix. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed it.